Greetings. My name is Simba Kamoni Bay, doing business as Derek McCauley. I am in Indianapolis, Indiana, and this is my SF-181 experience. I first um, began listening to Chief Nanya Shabuel around the spring of 2018. Me and my brother Iran was given the video by a friend of ours and just drew some interest to some of the things that Chief was mentioning during the video. During the 80s, I went to college at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, and I joined Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. During my tenure, which has been about 33 years now, in the fraternity, I was never given any information regarding the commercial aspect of doing business. I was born in South Bend, Indiana, and I began going to Ball State in 1985. Around 1995, I moved to Indianapolis, Indiana. Around that time period, I became conscious of a gentleman by the name of Taj Tariq Bey, who was a more out of the East Coast of the United States of America, who was speaking on some things like Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I was never explained. It was never explained to me that I was actually white. Shortly after dealing with Taj Tariq Bey, I joined the Temple 13 in Baltimore. And like Taj Tariq Bey and Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, the commercial aspect of self-identifying and using the UCCs and identifying as white was never mentioned. I thought that I was given a pretty decent understanding of some things prior to that, but all the way up until 2018, no fraternal organization, no more Science Temple of America Temple 18, no Taj Tariq Bey, no Pleasant Bay. Nobody ever mentioned really the UCCs in general, Standard Form 181, or the fact that I was white. After listening to Chief Nanya in the spring of 2018, he would in depth go into why you would term yourself white. And he specifically identified Standard Form 181. Standard Form 181 is a fairly simple form. It's a race, ethnicity, and race identification form put out by the U.S. Office of Personnel Management Guide to Personnel Data Standards. It is a government form backed by Title 42 U.S.C. 2000E16. On the form, it only asked for a few simple items. One of the items was last name, first name, middle name, social security number, and birth month and year. Down at the bottom in question one, or near the bottom, at question one, it asks, are you Hispanic or Latino? And the answer, of course, would be no. And then it lists a racial category. In the racial category, the racial denominations are American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, and white. Specifically, the definition of each category, other than Black or Afro-American, it lists a person having origins in any of the original peoples of specific lands. For instance, the American Indian, of course, being in North and South and Central America. The Asians being in the Far East, Southeast Asia, including Cambodia, China, India, Japan, Korea, etc. The Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islanders, of course, being original peoples of Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, or the Pacific Islands. And white as a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. It was Chief Nanya who introduced me to the fact that Queen Europa, which Europe was named after, was a melanated woman in the original Europe, which, of course, my family is Cherokee Indian here in the United States, my grandmother and grandfather. And when it would come to a racial category or denomination, it gets to the black or Afro-American or African American in the category, and it lists a person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. Well, upon research, I found that there were no black racial groups of Africa. And as a result, no classification would stick with me. So it was like I was just kind of floating out there in space with no race and ethnicity identification, including the driver's license, the Social Security Administration, all contracts that I was in. None of them listed me as being white. They listed me as being black, and which had no standing at law according to the Dred Scott case, which is still on the books. So throughout my tenure in education, even as a young child, I was never told that I was white. And the fraternal organization, the Kappa Alpha Psi, Pleasant Bay, which is the writer of the autobiography of Noble Drew Ali, never really mentions it. He never mentions it. Taj Tariq Bey never mentions it. Temple 13 never mentioned it. But it was Chief Nanya who explained the reason why you would term yourself as white. And it's simple that this information would be put on a form and put in public, and specifically on the UCC, specifically on Standard Form 181, and published in Calamayo. So my experience with the SF-181 form has been a good experience. I'm glad I've come across the information. It's going to help me in future endeavors. I have some things planned, me and my brother here. And I'd like to thank Chief Nanya and the Atakata Nation of Yamasee Moors for introducing this information. And I hope to pass this information on to anyone who's willing to listen to it. Until then, I'm signing off from Indianapolis. Abi Gador, Abi Gador, Abi Gador, White Power.